Mabuhay!
Hi! Welcome to
The Babalian Bruha Book Club podcast.
It's Your Village Kapwatids, Steph.
And Aimee, and here we are together again. And as always, in efforts to decolonize our minds, bodies, and reconnect with spirit by ways of relation via conversation, of education, interpretation, and integration.
So, this is our invitation for you to join us on our journeys as we discuss the works of honored artists, authors, and thought leaders in the Filipinx diaspora.
Quick disclaimer, we want to acknowledge that in this moment, everyone is exactly where they need to be.
And since we are not experts, yet we share our own unique lived experiences, we invite you to take or toss any statements, opinions, words that we may use as you choose.
We are so glad you found your way here.
So as always, before we begin, we want to take a moment to ground, just taking a pause to come into our bodies and become fully present in this space. If it's safe for you, we invite you to close your eyes, straighten your spine, and direct your focus onto your breath. So let's try to take some inhales and exhales together. When we inhale, push your belly button out. And when you exhale, push your belly button in. Ready? Inhale, yep. And exhale. Inhale again. And when you exhale, bring your belly button in. Let's do one more together. Inhale and exhale. You're welcome to continue breathing at your own pace. Then I just invite you again, come back in your body, connect. Try not to think about earlier. Try not to think about later. Can you feel into what it feels like to be here, to be in the here and now? And as we begin our conversation, we always thank God, Patala, Creator, for another gathering. In gratitude, we acknowledge our benevolent ancestors and invite all these forces to guide and protect this conversation today. We also thank the ancestors of the lands Aimee and I currently occupy, knowing we cannot do our own remembrance work without remembering them. For Aimee, that's the mound builders of the Hopewell and Adena people in Ohio. And for myself, that's the Bay, Miwok, Yokut people in the Inland Bay Area of California, Brentwood. And with gratitude, we also acknowledge you too, Kapwa, your energy, your light, for tuning in, no matter wherever and whenever that may be.
Okay, Sissy, thank you so much for bringing us back to our breath and for that prayer. So as always, Babalian Brujas, we do Bruha check, just like check in with your energetic rituals. What are you doing for you? What practices you are doing? And because we try to keep things on time for structure, we got 90 seconds each to talk about individually our Bruha.
All right.
So I'll go first.
All right.
Here we go.
You ready?
I'm ready.
3, 2, 1, go.
Okay, so I'm going to talk about sacred rage and honoring sacred rage. This is something I'm currently walking through at the moment. Me and Sissy Sis just had a whole conversation about it. But, you know, I just want to say that if you are experiencing sacred rage in your body, to feel it. And I'm speaking this to myself as well. Make time to feel your rage and make time and make it a ritual if you want. Go have a space and time and just allow your body. And I'm like, again, I'm not an expert. I'm literally just living this right now. Allow your body to feel what it needs to feel, and not I'm working on not intellectualizing shit, because I mean, it's good to use your brain, but I think I try to intellectualize my emotions, and so that I can get out of them. I'm like, oh, that's why XYZ is why I'm feeling ABC. Therefore, you know what I mean? Like, then I should just stop, because that's why I'm feeling this way, you know? So now I know why, then I should just stop. But I'm finding that the more that I drop into embodiment practices, and the more that I'm returning to my body and doing remembrance work and remembering my DNA and ancestral stuff, like my body's like, that's nice, but we have things that we need to feel.
Yes.
So that's where I'm currently sitting and exploring ways that are good for me to express that. And I just want to encourage y'all to do that as well, if you find yourself in the same, maybe in the same spot. So
You need to feel to heal.
feel to heal. Sometimes it's hard to feel the things, I'm not gonna lie.
Yeah.
But
That's okay too. Give yourself grace.
yeah. So did I make time?
You did. You complete?
Yes, I am complete.
All right.
All right.
My turn. Okay.
Let me get the time on the clock. And 2-1.
All right. I have been on my phone. I've been Bruha Tings. I've really been diving into my womb space, y'all. It's like I, have been in recent light of things, just taking more time to connect to my womb, my cervix in particular. And so with that existing while going to work and school and new transitions and things, I've just been trying to find time, and my cycle just is ending. So I am not only learning how to work with like cloth, I'm trying to reduce my blue carbon footprint and not use pads or tampons. So that, and it's so funny. My mom was like, that's what they did in the Philippines, using cloth pads or cloth panties. And I was like, yeah, it makes sense. So it's just like kind of cool to come back into a Filipino American way of dealing with your womb space in a capitalistic timing. And so, and also like school and work, it doesn't really go around your womb space. So I'm just trying to kind of overlap all those elements, as well as like honoring like, okay, like this is this time of the month. And then when my period comes, just really being ritualistic, kind of like I was rinsing my underwear and just kind of thanking the blood and, offering it back to the earth. And that to me, in closing, years ago, I would not have been doing, but as I'm like honoring it, and I'm telling y'all, it's like all the senses. It's the what do you call that? Temperature and texture and taste and touch and sounds and things like that. Like, right. I don't know. It's just, I feel like I'm becoming more intimate with myself and my body, particularly in my womb space in that sense, just trying to really feel through the practice and flow with it.
Yeah.
And did. So just, I'm like deepening my moon cycle practice.
I love that, Sissy. It's a challenge, like you said, because school, this capitalistic system that we're in, we have jobs we got to go to every day. We got school, we got things that are like da 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 da, and it can be a challenge to honor your own body's rhythms, So I applaud you, and like, yeah, that's inspiring to me.
Thank you. It's liberating. It's
Yeah,
liberating in some ways. So I hope that the dedication or commitment will support my overall health in that
I think
sense.
it will. I'm finding too that the more I tune into my body, shit, the less I can do. Like, I've been pushing to just
Mhm.
to get to-do lists done, to get, you know what I mean? But the more that I drop in, follow into your body's knowing, the more I try to follow my own moon cycles, I'm like, shit, I can't get as nearly as much done as I used to. And yeah, granted, I'm older, but also like it's just my body's like, no, we're listening. You're listening to me now. And no, so, slow down.
Slow down.
So
Love.
I applaud you, Sissy, for just being in the system and also trying to honor your body and anybody else who's out there doing that. Like all of us, round of applause. So
Yeah. Thank you. Okay, y'all. So you know the drill. We do Brown Girl Cliff Notes, and then we summarize the 2 chapters. We were realizing let's work smarter, not harder, and just do 2 chapters in one because they're relatively short-ish. A lot of info. So we do the Cliff Notes, and then we do our vocab words or quotes. We do the quotes, and so today, because in light of 2 chapters, we'll be doing 4 vocab words and
4 quotes.
Yeah. So, or 2 quotes.
You know, I don't know. What is
Each
time
chapter we
numbers?
do 1 quote each, right? So, okay, we go
Yeah.
do either
What is math?
way.
I can public math.
Yeah, what is math? It's not our strong suit. It should be. But okay. So, and then we close out with prayer. So,
Yeah, okay.
All right, y'all. So let's dive into chapter 11 and 12. 11 was a great segue into setting up the next part of how the Philippines was conquered by the conquistadors. I can't say that, sis.
Conquistadors.
Conquistadors, entitled Gold, God, and Glory. I don't know why my brain read that like Pocahontas. Because remember that song?
No.
They came. We'll talk about it later.
Okay,
but
okay.
The movie Pocahontas.
I was waiting.
When they came, you know, and they like they landed the ship, and then they like tried to they fucked up the land for like gold, but the gold wasn't in Virginia. Anyways, played themselves. Entitled Gold, God and Glory, author Judy puts together a timeline from 1519 to 1564, where it continues on the narrative when Spanish captain Hernan Cortes claimed Nueva Espana, or Mexico, for Spain. And so there's like a whole trade route or another travel route, and they mention what they're conquering along the way. Spain continued its quest to send expeditioners to the Spice Islands after Magellan's voyage. According to historians Nicholas Cushner, Charles Mann, and John Leddy Phalan, the true nature of man desiring gold and glory in the name of their God was inspired by knowing the price of spice, such as pepper. Right, such as pepper, which was a hot commodity. Naturally, they wanted to continue building commercial enterprise by sending fleets as large as 350 men through the sea, traveling for about 5 months along with minding treaties between Spain and Portugal, because people love to claim land. Led by leaders turned religious that also played roles in the part of conquering, such as Rey Luis de Villalobos, known for naming the islands. Fun fact of the West after the prince at the time turned King Philip in 1559. So little prince got the land named after him. He wasn't the king yet. Andres de Urdaneta, he was a fleet commander who became a friar later, played a role. Who pardoned with his cousin. This is the chapter's kind of main person now, Miguel Lopez de Legazpi, to continue the legacy of the Spanish crown to colonize the Philippines. Although they were instructed to not engage in any battles, Legazpi's crew was meant to collect knowledge of Portuguese and native landscapes to create tactics for complete domination, basically.
Complete domination. So, yeah. So, chapter 12 is all about the year 1565, where Legazpi makes his journey to Samar in the Visayas, to Manicani Island, Babalian, Limasawa, or Massua, Butuan, to Mindanao, and finally to Mactan in Cebu on April 27 of 1565. Along the way, he is and is not received by Filipinos. After years of mistrust and betrayal, it was confirmed by a captured chief during a conflict that the Portuguese put a stain on Filipinos receiving any foreigners to their shorelands. Because so remember, we were a trade route. We always welcome the traders, but the Portuguese put a stain and left a bad taste in the mouths of our ancestors. They would either fight, intimidate, or run for the fields when foreigners came. So, or when specifically Legazpi came. Is it Legazpi? Legazpi. I don't know. This became challenging for Legazpi as he intended to be more efficient, fair, and initially peaceful in his approach to quote, make treaties and to procure friends, of which I am in great need, end quote. Either way, this chapter was a solid depiction of the dramatic dance of meet, fight, and conquer that the historical Mann does to essentially tell tales of the continuation and finalization of an official proclamation to claim, quote unquote, an archipelago land, all in the name of Spain. So, a lot happening, a lot of details, but that's kind of the overview. And we'll just dive in and let's have some conversation. Okay, so we got 2 chapters today. So we're going to go over some vocabulary words for chapter 11. I will go first. What I found was interesting was on page 164. There was a lot of names. We had this conversation in earlier episodes about what did we call ourselves, right? So, but it's interesting to know what the Spaniards and the Portuguese and the colonizers basically called all of the things. So we have, first of all, the Spice Islands. I know we didn't really touch on it, but the Spice Islands are the islands that are called the Moluccas today, and it's an Indonesian archipelago. So when you think of the Spice Islands, think of like the Indonesia. So they were sailing to get to the Spice Islands in Indonesia, which is why they went through like Philippines, right? So that's the Spice Islands. There is also Las Islas del Poniente, or the Islands of the West, which we now know as Philippines. So that's another name for the Philippines. And also, like Steph pointed out earlier, Roy Lopez de Villalobos was the first one who named the Philippine Islands La Islas Filipinas. And then we also touched on it before, but Mexico was called Nueva Espana. So Mexico was Nueva Espana, Indonesia was the Spice Islands, and the Philippines, so far, our colonizers have called us Las Islas del Poniente, Las Islas Filipinas, and then we also learned in other readings, La Islas de los Pintados, so the islands of the painted ones. So lots of Spanish, but I don't know. I just find that interesting. I'm still wondering what we called ourselves, but it's just interesting to know that. So those are my vocabulary words.
Thank you for bringing up just something as, simple and complicated as that. Naming nomenclature.
Yeah, it's so important. It's so important. Yeah. So I am complete, Sissy.
Okay. All right. So my word is on page 166. It's Spanish cosmographers. So I was really kind of surprised that, people, just tale of time, people believed in the cosmos, and so did Spain. There's Hernan Cushner, which is a historian. His work said that there was a footnote in his article that a number of Spanish cosmographers argued that the Philippines fell within the Spanish zone, and there was enough uncertainty that Philip II determined he could take possession of the islands first. Um, and with this initial advantage, discuss the legitimacy of this act later. It was a 16th century version of like finders keepers. So I just kind of bring that up because again, it's the whole concept of conquest and conquering. And while they're sitting in their, castles in Spain and creating these plans and these treaties, there's room for Spanish cosmographers or people who study the cosmos and do the math. And somehow they, in a spiritual way, right, in a woo-woo way, people call it, believing in the planetary alignments that Philippines falls in the Spanish zone, like whatever their math says, that made them kind of like determine like, oh, Philippines is ours. And it's like, why? But I don't know if that makes sense, sis. Like, because people argue that astrology is also a form of math, because your sun is like in this degree of this and da 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 da. So
so I think they were trying to figure that out because of the Treaty of Zaragoza, because the Spice Islands were technically belonged to Portugal. So they were trying to figure out if the Philippines was also in the math. But what did they have? They had the cosmos. That's what they had.
Come on. So the colonizer even had wayfindings through the stars.
Through the stars.
I thought that was really interesting. So
well, we used it to navigate and get to places just for, I don't know,
survival, not for domination.
To visit our titos and titas, to visit our family,
to get some more rice and pigs or something. Sure.
Yeah, and they did it so they could go to the Spice Islands and conquer. So yeah. Are you complete, Sissy?
I am. Okay.
All right, so we'll bring some quotes for chapter 11 here. Again, this is chapter 11 was all about gold, God, and glory. So my quote is from page 167, and it's like the third paragraph. So it says, on November 20 in 1564, the fleet sailed, talking about Legazpi's fleet. The fleet sailed from Barra de Navidad on the west coast of Mexico with a crew of 300 to 350. I found in Cushner's footnotes that in the crew was a large group of non-Spaniards that included Portuguese, Flemings, Italians, Venetians, Greeks, and Frenchmen. So like all of Europe. There was no mention of whether the crew count included enslaved people, but when you read the stories, sometimes they can be found there. It saddens me that the accounts of those times do not consider them real people. So I just wanted to bring that to light because there's so much erasure of people who are oppressed, Black and brown people, enslaved people, and they're not included in the narrative. So even though we don't have specific accounts from those, Atiji didn't give specific accounts or specific stories, she kind of gives them a mention and just mentions the injustice of it. And it would be very interesting, like there would be such, like history would be so much more rounded, if that makes sense, like so much more nuanced if we had those stories and if they were treated as fact, so and those perspectives. So
yeah
just wanted to bring those up.
I think that's a great way to celebrate that there was a diverse set of not only Black and brown people, but Europeans.
Yeah, it's like there was a large group of non-Spaniards, but then like there was also enslaved people.
But they
So
don't talk about them. Yeah.
they don't talk about them or take in their perspectives. I think in when we talked about Enrique, who was Magellan's enslaved person, um, I think that's probably rare that we even know his story, honestly.
Yeah.
Like I said, I want a movie about Enrique. That's who I want to movie.
Right? Yeah, it's coming.
So, but
Thank you for
that is my quote. I am complete.
Okay. My quote is on 167 and 168. And it talked about entrusted. That's where it starts. So it kind of continues what you just said, sis. Besides soldiers, sailors, and slaves, Urdaneta and 5 other Augustinian friars were on board, entrusted to bring the natives of those regions a knowledge of our holy Catholic faith. Legazpi received orders to make sure that the friars received good quarters and good treatment. These orders were put into detailed instructions, how to kind of build their quarters, right? To experience in new, quote, new world conquests. Another historian, John Leddy Phalan, in his book, The Hispanization of the Philippines, added that the government of Philip II saw the Philippines as, quote, a challenging opportunity to avoid a repetition of the sanguinary conquest of Mexico and Peru. He said it was evident in written instructions that the king envisioned a bloodless pacification of the archipelago. So I just kind of bring this up because it's kind of just painting again that bigger picture, because I know like y'all are listening, and I don't know if you choose to read the book or not, but you know, for me, like picturing the route, you know, they're basically pushing out more ships from Spain, but then along the way they're stopping in Mexico and they're conquering that land, and then they're receiving news of like, you know, this land is yours, or like you need to avoid this treaty, or when you pull up, like try to, you know, put it on the reader, the leader,
Yeah.
right? Which we'll talk about Legazpi in a bit. Like he was trying to be more strategic, and so it's just kind of like it's like a movie, literally, you know. And so I think bringing up how there's multiple historians you can also read beyond our podcast if you want, that Judy cites a lot.
Yeah.
But this time they're coming with this, why I said the Hispanization of the Philippines. They're coming with religious people now, right? Because in the beginning of this book, we're kind of just unfolding Magellan coming in and doing himself. And now, and remember, this took 500 years for Spain to colonize us. So this is just following down the timeline of another batch of people. And then they're bringing more. It's like they're trying to get smarter, and they're trying to be more strategic in how they land in the Philippines. So.
Yeah. And I just wanted to point out real quick, like, at the end of the chapter, Ate Judy says, it is often said that the conquistadors were driven by 3 things: gold, God, and glory. So in this chapter, you can kind of see how the interweaving and how that really plays out. Like they came because spice is nice, bars. But
it tastes so very nice. Oh yeah.
It tastes so very nice with rice. Okay. So gold, but then here is when they bring in, like, they have the friars, and like, you know, it even says like the clergy were to be present in the negotiations with the natives.
Yeah.
And then glory, because they were like, it's for Spain, you know, versus Portugal, for Spain.
We're gonna pillage people in the name of Spain, yeah. Because we can. Ha ha ha. Yeah.
Ha 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 ha. So anyway, that is chapter 11. Let's get into chapter 12.
Right on.
Okay, so let's get into chapter 12. Like I said, we're doing 2 chapters this episode. And my vocabulary word, because we're going to do some vocab words and then we'll get into some quotes. My vocabulary word is tupas, not Tupac, tupas, Tupas. So tupas was actually one of the chiefs that was going to come out to meet Legazpi when they reached Cebu. So they reached Cebu, they dropped anchor, and then somebody from the island came out to tell Legazpi that Tupas, one of the chiefs, was going to come to see him later. And then a little later, another messenger arrived to say that Tupas was getting ready and he would arrive later that day with 10 of the principal chiefs of the island. So, for you're wondering why Tupas was important, he had been a young man when Magellan, so mind you, this has been a few years, right, since Magellan. So Tupas had been a young man when Magellan visited Cebu 40 years before. So he was younger, it's 40 years in the future, and he had been among those baptized in the mass conversion. So Ati Judy says that Legazpi probably felt he might use this connection to build an alliance and gain a foothold in the islands. But we shall see if that is true or not. But I just thought that was interesting. Like, you know, it's been 40, just like if we keep on referring to movies. So if you think about a movie, you think about a young man who's maybe like 15 or whatever, it's 40 years later. That's 54. I can't do math. 55.
Yep.
Right. And so now he's like, here they come again. So I'm like wondering, like, what was his perspective?
Yeah.
Like, you know what I mean? Like, what we're gonna do? So you're interesting.
He played smarter, not harder.
Yep.
He was like, we're gonna see you. No, we're not. Come back. He actually went back to the village. If y'all want to keep reading the chapter.
Yep.
And it says, you know, the friar Andres Danetta, they tried to go ashore, but they saw people packing up and literally fleeing they were like, no, bought them time. That's what he did.
Yeah, they were like,
oh, I'm not doing this again. We're packing up and leaving. Goodbye.
Like, okay, don't worry. We're gonna come there. Don't worry.
We'll be there. Nope. It actually says they waited a whole day, and then the next day they're like, wait a minute. So they probably gave it like 30 hours.
Yeah.
They're almost 40 hours, and they were like, wait. So yeah. Anyways.
And then he took his people. He took his people, and he said, "Not again." He said, "Not again. I'm not falling for that again."
Yeah.
And he said, "Bye. Let's go." So that was interesting to me.
Smarter, not harder.
Yeah.
Okay. But yeah, good one, sis.
All right, that's me. What do you got, sissy?
I got on page 174, and I want to talk about gold mining for a bit because gold and glory. And it's a friendly reminder of how it just affirms how indigenous people have been working with Mama Earth and only taking what they need. Okay. So Legazpi is talking here and he's saying that I guess they had landed somewhere again, right? And they're interacting with the natives and so Legazpi says that the people wore gold earrings, bracelets, and necklaces. He talked about the gold mines, but that the quote natives do not extract it until the very day they need it. And even then, they take only the amount necessary for their use, thus making the earth their purse. So I remember what Pigafetta had said, this is Ate Judy talking now, about Filipinos caring for nature in a way that the next generations could also benefit from them. Here was another interesting insight that ancient Filipinos who saw themselves as stewards of the environment. And I appreciate how Legazpi described it so poetically. Whatever that means. But I just wanted to bring up the fact that Filipinos also have been taking care of the earth. And I always hear of indigenous folks taking care of like more things that you can consume or eat, or like trees and things like that, but never gold. So gold is really interesting for me to hear, like, how do they know? Like I was like, how do they know to take what they need and the day of and stuff like that? So
well, maybe because I have no idea. But what's coming to me is maybe because they saw it just like food or anything else. They didn't see it as something like, oh my God, gold, I can sell it. You know what I mean? Even though they probably realized with the traders who came through that it was special,
Mm,
right? But they used it for adornment. That says they were wearing a lot of gold bracelets and necklaces, the natives decorated with gold. But it's like it they realized, you know, it's a resource as well. And if they use all of it, they're not going to have anything to trade. Just like if they use all of the rice or and like just mistreat the soil and they can't grow it again,
right.
right? So, and plus if you can't really grow gold,
Right.
it's just there. So maybe that's also why they were like only using it when they needed it. So and they probably, again, they didn't see it the way we see it now. We think gold, we think money, we think like power. And even though they might have that sort of inkling again from the traders that came through, they probably were just like, this is from the earth.
Yeah. We treat it
So
sacred and we
yeah,
only take what we need.
yeah, ex-
And
exactly.
so
So
yeah, that was my quote. Or yeah, it was my word. My word. That's my word.
yes,
Gold mining. We was miners, y'all. We're miners.
we had gold. Yes,
We are gold. Okay. You are gold. If you're
you are
listening,
gold.
you're
You
gold.
are.
Okay. I'm complete.
Okay.
All right. Chapter 12 quotes. Thanks for
Okay.
sticking. Still here. Shout out to you.
I
You're
know,
right.
right?
So we're on chapter 12 quotes now, sis. And you
I'll
want to
go
go?
first. Yeah.
Yep.
Okay. So page 183 was an interesting quote. It says, while most Filipinos think of Magellan as the quote unquote colonizer of the Philippines, it was actually Legazpi who accomplished this objective in 1565. So Magellan was just kind of the person who paved the way um, for the Philippines to be actually colonized. So it was just interesting. Again, we started off this whole journey with this book about like who is Magellan, what is the story behind it, what are the things that we were told, and how does it compare with like sources from history. But yeah, I don't think it's necessarily wrong to think of Magellan as the colonizer of the Philippines because that's what he represents. If he didn't come, Legazpi couldn't be there and do the things, you know what I mean, to do the things that um, were set out for him to do. So I don't think it's wrong necessarily to think that Magellan was the colonizer, but um, we did kill him. He's gone. So, so technically, when Legazpi came, he was the one who actually accomplished the colonizing. So, which is interesting because I didn't know that. Like when I hear Legazpi, I'm not like angry as I am when I hear Magellan. So it's uh it's interesting. So that was my quote
Yep.
and my thoughts behind that.
Yeah, yeah. No, um you says page 183, it says, that's the European it's Legazpi actually claimed he put the day that the anchor was drawn down, and it was very like, kind of like anticlimactic, it sounds like, because
Yeah.
you got all this drama with Magellan, and then there was a big old fight and he died, and then like people left him, they went back, and then here comes Legazpi as the second wave or whatever wave he was part of, I don't know. That's documented, and he just kind of waltzed in and claimed it, like, so it was just, you expected drama, but it wasn't. I mean, it is drama, but it wasn't like a big battle and that they won kind of thing.
Yeah. It's just yeah. I think we might talk about it in your quote. So I'm
Okay.
complete with mine if you want to introduce.
Sure. Mine kind of backtracks to 179, and it talks about how we mentioned earlier, like Chief Tupas was like, yeah, I'm gonna prepare to meet y'all, and then he left. So like it's just an elaboration of how much conquering trauma was happening, like even
Wow.
things like native proas, which I gather from the context is like big boats, like trading. That's what they used to trade in or whatever. So specifically on March 17th, a native proa was seen, and then Legazpi and another boat like tried to basically board it or conquer it, and the people on the proa were traders, and they had cargo of like multicolored blankets, damasks, silk, cotton, iron, porcelain, gold, and others. And then they kind of just jumped. They left ship, but there was also some that fought, right? So I just bring this up to highlight Legazpi's character that's depicted so far. It says Legazpi regretted the incident right away. He ordered the cargo along with its equivalent in Spanish goods returned to the traders, who he learned from Borneo. I don't know what that means. He said, I don't know if that's the Philippines or not, that's what I'm trying to say, but he said, my chief intent is to not go privateering or being a pirate, but to make treaties and to procure friends, of which I am in great need. And so to absolve himself, Legazpi wrote in his account that the traders were happy with this settlement. So there's just a couple times in this chapter where Legazpi, he also, when he because he was instructed not to battle, right? But he would drop his anchor and he would kind of take his time to interact. He wasn't like gonna conquer right away. So I don't know if he's just kind of procuring this self-concept of him that he's not violent or whatever, but Ate Judy's writing and her research kind of shows he was not Magellan. He wasn't someone who liked to fight or kill people. He wanted to come in peace. He wanted to
Yeah.
So I just thought that was interesting as a little contrast, however people want to perceive or have perceived Legazpi.
Yeah, but it's interesting though, because he was trying to come in peace and establish some sort of relationship, I guess, but everybody was running. They were either running away or they were like throwing sticks and rocks at them.
I'm not laughing because this is true.
Yeah, because
he just kind of came in a tainted reputation time, and he's like, I'm not trying to be like that, but it's
yeah. But then it's interesting because he was like that. He was the one. He was the one that accomplished the colonizing, right?
Yeah.
And it's so, I don't know, it's just so interesting to me too, about, just to backtrack a little bit, how they all, Legazpi was coming in and oh, we want to be friends, we're offering peace, and the people were they offered us all friendship, which we desired, but no food whatsoever. So that they pissed them off. If Filipinos aren't going to feed you,
right,
if we're not going to feed you,
we're always
eat, you do. Yeah,
right.
We not sharing our rice, then something must be up. So, and I thought it was interesting too, he was trying so hard to be peaceful, but it says here in what page 176 that they all agreed that in view of the grave necessity of the troops, because they didn't have no food, supplies could be forcibly taken from the Filipinos. However, they must be paid just price for what was to be taken, and the Filipinos were to suffer no bodily harm. And I thought that was kind of how are you going to take something from somebody forcibly and not cause anyone bodily harm?
Yeah. Well, so
we don't mean to be mean.
Because the Filipinos don't want to feed them. So I get it in some ways. I don't know if they're hungry. They're hungry. They want food. Filipinos won't feed them because Magellan and whoever else pissed them off.
Mm-hmm.
So they're gonna be like, okay, we'll take this. But it was just, I remember that part, and I'm glad you brought it up because Legazpi made sure to be like, we're gonna pay you, right? We're gonna give you money, we're gonna give you stuff back. So
but
like, it's fair, but not fair.
Exactly. It's fair, but not fair because they did come ashore and they took some pigs and they took some like potatoes and rice, but then what they gave them in payment is not something they could eat. Like they couldn't eat what they got that got paid. You know what I'm saying?
I know.
So,
yeah, it's like we didn't agree. This wasn't an agreement. So I think like again, Legazpi, maybe he's just like really like he didn't want to be perceived a certain way. So, and I don't know. Maybe it's just over compassion. Just he's trying to be better, but
yeah,
he could have been a total asshole as someone else. I don't know. So
if he wanted to be better, just leave him alone. That's the best way.
Even like, I don't want to do this job. I'm gonna take this ship and we're just gonna live in the Philippines and we're not gonna colonize anything.
Yeah.
Like taking the car from your parents and then never coming back.
Yeah, I just thought it's just interesting to see the like where it goes from here and just how it's still, even if they mean well, it's still stank,
Yeah.
Still not cool. So, but that is what we have for chapters 11 and 12. So continue to stay tuned, read along. If you don't want to read along, that's fine. Please just listen along and we'll bring chapters 13 and 14 in the next episode.
And to give you a little trail, what is it called?
Teaser?
Yeah. We're going to talk about how Legazpi is now established on the land. What happens? So
what happens next?
Now you all the friars and shit. Like, what are they going to do?
The friars, the religious men.
Yep. All right.
Okay, so as we end our conversation and close out this container with so much gratitude, we recognize and honor all our ancestors and the ancestors of the lands we occupy. And we also recognize and honor you, dear Kapatid, for joining our conversation today. And as always, your ates leave you with a blessing. As you continue on this journey of remembrance, may you know that the truth of your ancestors lies in the sacred both and so does the truth of this decolonization work. While it is both frustrating to forget, it is also liberating to remember. You have been called to this sacred work, and while you may find grief, may you know that you will also find joy. May the remembrance of Kapwa anchor you into your heart, and until we meet again, may you know that all is well and will be well, and that no matter what happens, you are